Okay, I'd like to do a quick tutorial on how to use outline text, how to use the pen tool, and how to group and ungroup objects. So let's quickly go into our Illustrator document. And there are times in Illustrator where you want to create text that you can edit again, and there are times when you want to create text and turn it into an outlined object. And I'll be showing you the difference today. So let's start out with something like, this is a beautiful headline. Now, I can change my text. I can open the character palette over here. If you don't find a character palette, you can go to Window, Type, and Character. Or you can also change your font up here in the upper bar. This allows me to choose a different font to change the size and spacing. Let's say we're going to make a nice big headline looking object here. Now, at times, I might want to keep this editable. I might want to be able to go back and change my text. And in that case, that's usually what you're going to want to do for large areas of body copy, things you have to look for typos, things like that. If you want to do a first draft, have somebody give you feedback and then say, oh, maybe this font is a little too hard to read, you want to be able to go in and change that again. Those are all good times to keep it editable. That one's not very pretty either. Let's go for a nice, beautiful font here. There are other times where you're going to want to turn your font or your type into an object and do other things with it. And this is when we're going to use outlined text. So right now, if I click on the T, the type tool, I can always go into this box and change things around. Go back and forth, change the color of the text, things like this. But let's say we're going to actually create outlines of this. I want to go up to Type and create outlines, and now all of those letters are individual shapes or objects, like the other circles or squares you would draw in Illustrator. Right now they're in a group, and grouped objects are nice. I'll just put some objects here for an example, because you can do things with them together that you can't do alone. So if I want to make these objects a group, I can either go up to Object, Group, or my shortcut is Command-G on a Mac or Control-G on a PC. Then I can resize things, I can move them around together, whatever happens to one happens to the other. And on something like an infographic, this is really important to know, is how to group your objects, especially as you get more and more of those objects all over your page. I don't want to have to go and select individual things. If I have something really complex where my objects are overlapping or have tiny text on top of them, drawing a box around them, or just selecting Shift, click, selecting them all and then grouping, will be a great way to keep all of those together. So in the future they'll be easier to grab. Here's an example. Sometimes if I accidentally double click, my screen goes gray and I'm just editing one object at a time. If you get stuck in a page like this, notice the bar up here, it's letting you edit one group at a time. Just go back, use your back arrow, and you'll get back to your normal page. So here's group objects. When I turned my type into objects, it automatically grouped them. But let's say we want to work with them individually. Let's ungroup them. And for that, we either go to Object, Ungroup, or we hit Shift Command G or Shift Control G. And now each letter is an object of its own. I can change the color of one letter at a time. I can make it really big. I can stretch it, do weird things. So this is something that I couldn't do when the text was still editable. You'll notice sometimes letters like these I's are still groups. It was a group within a group. I can ungroup again, Shift Command G, and get it so maybe it's not going to let me. So I can edit just one. In this case, it's still considering it one shape. I can also use my Direct Select tool, this white arrow, to select just one part of that. And in those cases, you can usually change one thing. Okay, this was a bad example because that eye thinks it's the same shape. but in other fonts, that's not going to be the case. So this obviously doesn't look as nice as you'd like it to, but you can see why having these might be helpful for a headline, because I can change and distort my size of my text kind of a word at a time instead of waiting for things to be all, edited the same way as I would normally do with editable text. So play around with that, see what you can do, play with your text a little at a time. This is also a nice way to do things like, let's copy this E, Command C, Command V for paste. You can do really nice things like the fancy initial letters that you see in type sometimes, or make something visual out of it. I can even open, I've got some swatches, my color swatches. Open Swatch Library, there are pattern swatches which fill an object not just with a color but with a pattern. This can be really fun for things like a single letter that you've converted to outlines, because now I can make something really cool and decorative out of it, and maybe use that to enhance my infographic and how it looks. I think I liked that brown one. So play around with those as well. The final thing in this tutorial I wanted to show you is how to make some simple objects using the pen tool. This is, you can either click on the board over here or use P, the shortcut. And a pen tool is just an easy way to draw items. Illustrator kind of nicely gives you, let's make this a solid color so we're not confused. It nicely gives you these green guides that pop up that show me how to, line things up. See, it's lining up with other objects, showing me how to draw a straight line, making my life nice and easy overall. I can also use the pen tool to make curves, and this is what's called a Bezier option. And you're still using the same pen tool, but if I click, make an anchor point, and then I'm going to click and hold and pull, drag down with my mouse or my pad, I can make curved lines. And do that again. Things are going to be a lot easier to draw more natural looking shapes. This is something it does take a little while to get the hang of, so you might not want to try to do something really complex if you haven't used it before, but you can do something simple, like a little half circle,